Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast, live from Edleys in 5 Points. They fed me yesterday after I bought a big box of Thanksgiving food. They host me today. Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com. Hope you had a very happy Thanksgiving, a lazy day. Hope you're having a lazy day today, and it lends yourself to popping in here. See two young ladies amongst the first guests in the chat, and then an older, fine gentleman. Lots to talk about today as the Titans get ready for a trip to Washington. Big plays emerging for this team. Increased faith in Will Levis, Jeffery Simmons in the last 7 games, really doing great work. My 25th anniversary Titans team in year 25 here. And, of course, all of your questions will build off a lot of that. JT Runke, enjoying a day with his family, helped me set up, but is sadly not with us today for me to mock his shirt or to collect his winning picks. I'll have one for you when we talk about Zen Sports, the other fine sponsor of this excellent podcast. Great to see a lot of you pouring in here. Happy holiday to all of you. I ate a phenomenal amount of food, and will return home to do so after I stop in to talk with Brian Callahan and check with the Titans locker room before calling it a practice week. So thanks for stopping by. Let's dive into some of this stuff going on here. Titans have to win 2 in a row to get going here, and for any of this nice belief going on, I'm surprised by the level of happiness that emerged out of this one win with Houston. It was a good win, and the schedule definitely takes a turn in their favor, but they haven't won back-to-back games in 35 games since Denver and Green Bay back-to-back, which preceded a 7-game losing streak. That was in November of 2022. So I'll believe they win back-to-back games when I see them win back-to-back games, and then, great. Then we'll talk about winning 3 in a row, conceivably. But the question is whether this stuff is sustainable, and they've given us no reason to believe it is sustainable yet. So for fans that were talking about draft position and about firing the coach and the front office and everything, I'm surprised at what a big effect one really nice win in Houston had. Scored over 30 for the second time this season. Did a lot of good things. Still had a pick 6 from Levis. Still had some giveaway issues. Still had some sack issues and the like. It's amazing what winning can do. And, again, it was by far their best game of the season. But a lot of surprising happiness from the fan base to me. And when you hear Simmons talking about, everybody knows the division still runs through us after the Jaguars and the Texans have won the division the last 2 years, when the Titans were, absolute non-factors. Once that 7-game losing streak got started 2 years ago, I think is, it might be what a player has to say, but it's a little bit of crazy talk also. So we'll see. Washington has struggled lately. They've got a mobile quarterback. Mobile quarterbacks tend to give the Titans some problems, and I'm sure the Commanders are looking at this as a get-right game against a team that has had a lot of problems. So terrible stadium up there. Somebody, I was on the radio up there. They asked me how many Titans fans I think will travel to this. There is a tight contingent of Titans fans that do travel pretty regularly. I wonder, it wasn't a big group of Titans fans in Houston. And to go to Landover, Maryland on Thanksgiving weekend to a bad stadium, I mean, it's fun to be in Washington, D.C. for sure, but I wonder just how many people will make this trip with the Titans. Let's talk about Will Levis, who in these last 3 games is the main reason for encouragement, really. And he's finding deeper stuff. Yeah, I think I talked about it last week. I wrote after 5 weeks, I think, where are the wow throws that we saw last week? They're back. Before his injury break, he was averaging 6.16 yards per attempt. In the 3 games since he's come back, 9.59. Big sneeze there, sorry. 9.59 yards per attempt since he's come back. That's really good stuff. And so got Brian Callahan here talking about how the deep stuff is kind of emerging.
I think there's a comfort level between Will and I in terms of the style of throws. I got a better feel for the things that he throws really well, using the players the right way for us. We've gotten better at putting those guys in better positions. And then Will's confidence to throw them. We've gotten some great looks. We've gotten exactly what we'd hoped we would get on some of those long balls, and just really well executed. He's got a lot of confidence right now throwing the ball down the field, and he put a couple of really great throws, which they make them look easy sometimes, but those aren't necessarily easy throws that he made, and then he put them right on the money. So the more of that we can do, the better. And if you can find a way to get 7-8 explosives in a game, you're going to put yourself in a pretty good spot.
I'll talk about this more later, but this idea that Callahan's finally figuring out what Levis can do and the personnel, I think it's a disappointment that it took so long. I knew, and we talked a lot about the Chad Brinker quote from the owners' meetings about how long will it take all of these new people to gel, and we knew there was a possibility it was going to take a while for all of these new people to gel, but that Will Levis has this in him, and it took so long for the Titans to unlock it is a disappointment. We'll get to that in another section. Curious what you think about Levis emerging in this fashion. He also said, Levis, when things were maybe at the bottom, that he needed to rewire his brain for certain circumstances. Rewiring is a big concept. Rewiring is a complicated concept. I asked him if he thought he had done that because the results are a lot better. He said, I haven't done anything too crazy. Some of it's take care, and then paraphrasing, some of it's taking care of itself. Overall, the improvement as a whole, he cited kind of individuals who've all gotten better at their job. I think some rewiring has kind of happened just by him going through the process. And it's hard to erase the sack problems. It's hard to erase from our minds the foolish, terrible play from early in the year. But these 3 games are awfully encouraging, the same way the first 3 games were awfully discouraging. And, I think there's something to be said for what he's doing now. MB says it's disappointing but not surprising. First time head coach and play caller with a new team and new players on offense. It's showing promise for next year. But like I'd look at Minnesota. Did Kevin O'Connell last year? Sure, Cousins had experience, but did it take him this long? I maybe need to do a more thorough study. A lot of first-time play callers had quicker, good results with what were regarded as good rosters. And this Titans roster was regarded, at least locally, after the big free agent expenditure, fighting my straw there, struggling out of the gate with an improved roster in a way that it just seemed like too much took too long. How many fried ribs did I eat yesterday, Howie? The Titan is asking. I actually got bonus fried ribs because they were treating me right. We did not heat them up for dinner, which my son really protests having holiday dinners in the afternoon. He wants dinner at dinner time. We had dinner at 3:00. And then my wife and I did not have a later meal. I had pie later on, but my son wanted ribs later, and I heated up some ribs for him. Thanksgiving, our big, people talk about arguments at big Thanksgiving dinners where you're pulling together all the aunts and uncles and stuff. We don't have that. Obviously, it's just 3 of us. We played 2 big games of Scrabble, but our big debate during the day was our 17-year-old mutt, a Beagle mix, who's got 2 surgically repaired ACLs in his back legs, doesn't hear well, doesn't see well, moves poorly now, who he should love the most among the three of us. Um, and I think I've got the best case. He should love me the most because without me, he wouldn't be in the house because I picked him out from the pound. My wife was very patient. I was not a big dog person, and she waited for me to fall in love and choose a dog. And I chose Finley. So without me, Finley couldn't be loved by my wife, who does most of the caretaking, and my son, who says, well, he's been around for Finley's entire life. So I don't see how I don't win this because there'd be no opportunity for Finley with Teresa or Simon if it weren't for me bringing him home. Robert Price. Do we see Levis's play elevate even more against a defense that isn't as good as the last three opponents? And Robert, I think that question extends beyond not just the Commanders, but for the rest of the season. Titans only see this is the last team besides Houston the last week that they see with a winning record. And so that's a big question. Can they sustain it? Can they start beating teams that have lesser records and certainly don't qualify defensively like the Chargers, like the Vikings, like the Texans? Maybe they can grab something and sustain it and make a turn here. The last 2 years in the AFC South, somebody's gotten hot late and done a lot of good things. So Levis talked about, gaining faith. He said it's because Callahan's been able to see us go out there and execute these plays at a high level, and he has trust in me that I'm going to be able to see it well and make the right decisions and check the ball down when we need to and come back to it and try to get the shot later. So they were talking really about this idea that the magic plays don't happen by magic. You have to be patient. You have to wait for them to emerge and all of that. All of that said, this idea that he was forcing things early and he's not forcing them now and he's letting things develop still says like he's making some of these quote unquote magic throws off his back foot under pressure. And he wasn't doing that early in the season. And he did do it as a rookie and he is doing it now. So there's like a gap in his resume. There's a gap in his resume, and you wonder about that gap in his resume. He's got the fifth highest passer rating over the last 3 weeks at 109.3, and he's not behind an all-star cast. Carr, Nix, Tua, and Lamar Jackson. So I think if you're telling people around the league, and this doesn't count yesterday's 3 games and 6 teams, but if you gave people a list of Carr, Nix, Tua, Lamar, and Levis, said, what are these 5 guys about right now? They would not say the best 5 passer ratings over the last 3 weeks. So that's interesting. In terms of attacking Jaden Daniels, Jeffrey Simmons says you have to get in his head by hitting him a couple times. It wasn't dismissive of him, but made it sound like, if we handle our business early, Daniels won't be a big problem. I don't know. I think, Daniels has probably leveled off like a lot of people have leveled off at this stage of the season who've had big years so far, but he's a problem. Spencer wants to know when we change punt returners. Why not give Oliver a try? I don't know what Oliver's like as a punt returner, but it seems to me like they're pretty committed to Jaquan Jackson, who's, I think he's 7th in the league maybe, but he's just got no real chance of busting one. I say that now, he'll bust one against Washington. Very horizontal versus lateral guy, not very sure-handed lately, and Callahan doesn't believe in punitive stuff like pulling a guy when he loses a fumble and things like that, which I just think there's more pressure to me on the Titans to do something in a punt return game because they give up so much in the punt return game. Because they give up so much in return games, they've got to get something in return games. They don't seem to feel like that. So they're satisfied with meeting a minimum standard in their own return games, which is secure the ball, despite the fact that their standard in terms of protecting against giving up returns is never met. So let's retweet. Let's thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe. This will be up audio. If you're listening on audio, please like, rate, review, all of those things that help the cause. I appreciate you out there in that regard. If you're not a member of Kuharsky.com, you're missing out on a lot of good stuff. I had up this week my 25th anniversary All Titans team. This is the 25th anniversary season of the Tennessee Titans, the team as the Titans. A lot of tough choices on there. A lot of guys on the team. I used kind of position numerical stuff that the Titans outlined when they were working on something with a ballot that they didn't wind up making much of a big deal about. A lot of tough choices there. And I did kind of put the guys in the order where I envisioned them. It was tough, too, because they've been 4-3 and they've been 3-4, sorting through linebackers in particular, which were, they had defensive ends and then they had linebackers grouped together inside, outside. So some tough choices there. Harold Landry missed the cut, which, I went back and forth on. But I think I did a good job of not falling victim to recency bias. And I'm the guy most qualified, I think, having covered the team since before they became the Titans, since 1996, at contextualizing some of these old-time guys and considering somebody like Eddie Robinson, who many of you might not remember, and some of you might not have been alive for, who was on the Super Bowl team and the 2000 team, I think the best team in this team's history, and gave him a lot of consideration. He didn't quite make it. I urge you to subscribe to be able to read something like that. Become a member of paulkuharsky.com. You read me, everything I do. Blake Bedingfield, who does scouting, previews, and reviews, and Mike Herndon, who once a week gives us a great analytical piece that usually includes some great film review. This week he looked at 4 guys and gave us some. Ed Henry asks, could he argue Zach Pillar over Saffold and Kevin Carter over Autry? I think you could on Pillar. I mean, then you'd have conceivably Matthews, Olsen, and Pillar, all from that one era's line, which was a very good line, but they've also had a line that blocked for 2,000 yards for Chris Johnson, a line that blocked for 2,000 yards for Derrick Henry. I think Saffold was a very good player and maybe more technically refined than Pillar, and Pillar was more of a brute strength guy. Kevin Carter and the Titans ballot, I think, tied, which I'm always a little bit skeptical of a tie. I was not a huge Kevin Carter guy, and I didn't give him a whole lot of consideration there. I think Autry, he would have been the next guy in line there, but I think Autry's flexibility that he could play defensive tackle, defensive end, and outside linebacker. And the Titans were just so much better when he was on the field. When he went off the field, it had a terrible effect on Jeffery Simmons and the Titans' overall ability to pressure the quarterback. So I feel comfortable with both those decisions. But I wouldn't go with you, but I think those are good conversational debates. Robert Pruitt says, Pac-Man Jones was a great Titans returner, wasn't he? How close was he to making my top 25? Not at all. I mean, Derek Mason has, an all-purpose yardage mark that's still second in all-time league history to go with behind Darren Sproles. He holds the record for Titans punt return yardage and kick return yardage. Pac-Man Jones had some very dynamic returns in a short period of time. I didn't spend a minute considering him. Love that you guys have some stuff around that. Mike Vrabel's burner. It's unfortunate for the Titans that the upward trend will result in keeping Brian Callahan and therefore losing Denard Wilson, who's a better coach. Denard Wilson's not going anywhere after this season. The Titans have not had the defensive season that people are imagining. I mean, if you're just looking at the number, they've fallen to second in yardage to Philadelphia. But no team is going to just look at the Titans' yardage number and not realize how many short fields they've defended, not realize how little sacking of the quarterback they've done, not realize how little taking the ball away they've done. I think Denard Wilson's done a good job, not a great job. I think next year, if he gets another pass rusher, if they settle down at safety, and if they've got this depth at corner with a healthier stuff, they could take another step and be a great defense. But I think they'll get 2 years out of Denard Wilson. And I don't think Brian Callahan was getting fired even if things went poorly. I think you're being supremely overreactive. So I wouldn't put it that way. Appreciate all the comments here. Let's go into another area here. Let's go with the resurgent Jeffery Simmons. I bashed Jeffery Simmons hard earlier this season when I thought he was not getting the job done. And I think a lot of you agree that we don't have a problem with the idea of trading him because he was not producing, and I thought he was not the guy that he had been early in his career. And you couldn't list him with the best defensive tackles in the NFL in terms of his production. We thought maybe that guy disappeared. Since week 6, after the bye, when he came back from being hurt, he's tied for pressures, the league lead in pressures per next-gen stats with Alan McNeil of Detroit with 27 pressures in 7 games, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, 25 tackles, 3 passes defensed. Very good. And it's really helped Tavondre Sweat begin to emerge. Teams are having trouble figuring out what kind of numbers to dedicate to these 2 guys. Running up the middle, it's not really an option, which I've said time and time again. There's no stat for stopping runs up the middle. The teams have not been really finding much of a solution in the run game at all. And Simmons looks like the Simmons that we've seen when Simmons is at his very best. So I think that's a little bit of a relief that the Titans' longtime best defensive player is back to being the Titans' best defensive player. I asked Denard Wilson, speaking of Denard Wilson, about Simmons getting back to being Simmons.
Yeah, I mean, the defense goes the way Jeff and really Big Sweat plays inside. The way Jeff has been playing of late, people can't stop him. And, he started off the same way. We figured out ways to get him some more matchups and things that we're doing. But Jeff's a hell of a player. He's one of the best players in the National Football League, and we're blessed to have him.
He didn't start off the same way. I don't know why they have to say that. I think it's something about Jeff's temperament that you can't say, like, he wasn't as good early, and now he's back to himself, which is fantastic. But, Brian Callahan, well, the stats acknowledge, and listen, some of the defensive dirty work that goes on in the interior defensive line doesn't show up stat-wise. But the fact that he's tied for the league leading pressure since week 6 tells you that before week 6, he wasn't doing as much. There's a line of demarcation there. And those stats come from the Titans. So it's good to see that he's doing so much better. And look, Jeff, when things are going well for Jeff is a delight to be around. And when things aren't going well for Jeff is pretty sour. And so I like when Jeff is playing well. It's a good thing. It's a good thing for the team. It's a good thing for the defense. It's a good thing for the tone of the team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody retweet. We'll get a few more people in here. I want to say, I know the Raiders are about to kick off here and get their asses kicked by Kansas City. The league, and this is representative, the league has done a remarkable job of keeping the Raiders off television this year. I think this is the Raiders' lone primetime game, Black Friday afternoon, a new time slot recently discovered by the league. But I'm pretty sure the Raiders haven't played in prime time and that this is their one featured game of the season. This shows it can be done. You can take a big name, historically popular team with a lot of fans, know that it's going to be shitty, and not put it on TV a lot. So, when you're formulating the schedule next year, I know the Jets may be coached by Mike Vrabel, or the Giants could be coached by Bill Belichick, or all kinds of things could happen to those teams. You can turn down the national broadcast opportunities for those teams significantly. You just did it with the Raiders. You can take historically popular teams with a huge number of fans and make them appear significantly less on national television, giving us what could be much better games. I know it's hard, and this is kind of, a good I do water instead. Let me finish that, but I'll have water the rest of the time. Leon hooking me up. I know it's hard, and that's one of the things that makes the league great. It's hard to predict who's going to be good and who's not, but and there's more flex possibilities that I don't use all of them. Better games on TV, more competitive games on TV, and I'm not expecting Chiefs Raiders to be something that we all say, hey, Black Friday NFL football was terrific today. Something good to fall asleep on in front of on TV, but keep the Raiders off TV until they get good again. It's fine. It's going to work. It's going to be brilliant. Good job. Good job. What I think the Titans are doing different schematically that's contributed to Levis's recent success. Less conservative, more conservative. I don't know that there's a monstrous difference schematically as much as it's Levis kind of not forcing things. I mean, I think they're featuring Ridley consciously more, and that's in part because Hopkins isn't here. I don't want to say, hey, they got rid of a good player and it's made things better. I don't want to hear that. Somebody was asking questions about that this week. I told them if I read a story about how the trade of Hopkins enabled them to be better on offense, I thought that would be ridiculously reductive. But I think I said it before, and I'll get to it a little bit more later. The idea that Callahan has gotten to know his players better and what they can do and what he can call and what will work, and Levis has gotten better at all of that stuff. So those have all been factors in it. Howie says, do I think Levis playing better is making opposing offensive coordinators choose to pass to keep ahead as a reason by Simmons around? I think that's pretty drawn out, Howie. The offensive coordinator on the other team isn't really spending much time considering what the opposing offense is doing. It's considering game situations. But teams aren't running against the Titans as much or as well because they're not having any effectiveness doing it. Ed says he's surprised that Awuzie has to earn his way back to the starting lineup. He assumes that wouldn't apply to Snead when he's ready. Well, we don't know yet what the lineup's going to look like. But I also think they're probably easing him back in terms of not going to give him a full workload in his first game back from the groin. So if he plays this weekend, and they play 55 snaps on defense, they're going to want him to play 55 snaps. And I can go to what I have on Awuzie here. Wilson said he's going to play the hot hand, and you have to take somebody out to give Cheeto a chance to prove if he's the hot hand. But look, the fact of the matter is, Cheeto Awuzie's got a long time resume. Now, Daryl Baker's played good corner, but Cheeto Awuzie, kind of along the lines of what you're saying, is a proven veteran corner who they spent good money to get. I would think Awuzie would go in front of Baker pretty quickly. Now, it might not be the first game. You'd probably bring him in for his share of snaps. I don't know, certain timing or certain situations, and divide him with Baker, I would guess, over a game. And then the next game, if they play the same, Woozy would get more and Baker would gradually fade. It's been great experience for Baker, and you want Baker. But if you got 3 starting level guys for 2 spots, one of them's going to sit. Jerome Baker, the other Baker, it hadn't gotten off to a great start, but for a while they had 3 starting caliber guys there. In Murray, who is not leaving the field. In Gibbons, who was playing well, who I don't think is a long-term starting solution, but he was playing well. And in Baker. And before Gibbons got hurt, Baker was sitting behind a hot hand. So I think it's kind of the same thing. But I don't know that he has to earn his way back into that starting role. I think it's more he's got to get up to snuff on the snaps. Spencer wants to know if something happened behind the scenes that we don't know that helped Levis, sports psychologist, intervention by agent or coaches. We don't know. I talked earlier about hitting on the rewired thing, and Levis said, no, just kind of let things happen. What was the quote I had? I asked specifically about the rewiring, and he said, I haven't done anything too crazy. So if something happened, it wasn't too crazy. And it sounded like when we asked about sports psychologist with when he talked about rewiring, he considered that on the too crazy fringe. So we will see. Let me tell you about Zen Sports. Zen Sports, long-term sponsor of this fine podcast. It's where you should be doing your betting. Hop on your phone, download the Zen Sports app, and use the code TNPaul. Sign up with TN Paul. If you want it to work this way, you can work it to get a free membership with PaulKuharsky.com. Get on, use that code, make a bet of at least $10, get a free year at PaulKuharsky.com. Either way, you got a first bet, a no danger first wager bet, right? So you can bet something up to plus 500, up to $1,000. You win, and you're in the money. You lose, and you get that money back within 24 hours. It's a sweet betting deal. I've given you some winners here. I won last week with Seattle against Arizona, and I'm going with Seattle again. I just don't understand the Jets. Seattle's giving 1.5 at the Jets. I don't understand any enthusiasm for the Jets. I understand cross-country trip for Seattle and all of that, and I don't think Seattle's great, but I think Seattle's good. And I know the Jets aren't good. So I feel comfortable taking Seattle, giving 1.5 at the Jets. I would make that bet this weekend at Zen Sports. And if you're looking for a first wager, no danger bet to take to Zen Sports, that'd be the one I'd make. Zen Sports, it's for Tennessee only, and they've treated me exceptionally well. I hope you'll consider doing the same since you're in here and to some degree a fan of the work that's going on here. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 and over in Tennessee to bet. Zen Sports, Zen Sports, Zen Sports, Zen Sports, Zen Sports, Zen Sports. John Shepard says Murray has a pretty good cap hit next year. Do I think he's done enough for an extension? I would like them to have more coverage able inside linebackers, but I could see them just taking the cap hit. They're not in major cap trouble next year, and they haven't had a chance to get a read on Cedric Gray. Because he's been hurt, he's not going to get many game reps to prove himself. Jerome Baker, also a free agent. They're going to have some decisions to make at inside linebacker. These other younger guys, Otis Reese, Gibbons isn't going to be ready to play at the beginning of next year. I wouldn't think. Otis Reese, who am I forgetting? Another James Williams. James Williams is a project. He's not going to be ready to be a starting inside linebacker next year. I think they've got a lot of inexperience there, so there are going to be some decisions to be made. Could we convert? Laundry wants to know some of these corners to safety instead. The teams still do this with aging and slowing cornerbacks. Yeah, I mean, the Titans did it with Elijah Molden. But, you know, maybe a Woozies could be a candidate for that. I don't think Snead would be. I mean, I think a Woozie would be the chief potential guy for that. We'll see. Burks is on IR. Question from Spencer: will we ever see Burks in a Titans uniform again? I don't know why anybody would want to. His injury, thinking it was a knee. I don't remember for sure. Will we ever see him in a uniform again? Is he out for the year? They don't declare people out for the year when they, suffer an injury. It's not season ending. I would think he's got a chance at reemerging, but I don't know why they would feel compelled to get him on the field. Ed says, and this is a very good question, seems like when Levis corrects something, another issue arises. Completion percentage up results in holding the ball too long, taking sacks. Interesting to watch his progression. This is what Brian Callahan has said about the team in general. They correct something somewhere and another issue arises. And he tried earlier this week, which I blasted him for, to say that's what happens on special teams, which is like what happens everywhere else. And I thought he was dragging down both the offense and the defense by saying special teams is just like everything else. Special teams is far worse than anything else. He's holding the ball too long in too many situations, but he is, and he pointed this out, and I think it's a valid thing to talk about, that he's taking less 8-yard sacks and more 1- and 2-yard sacks where he's working to get back to the line of scrimmage. And it's a lot better to be in 2nd and 8 instead of 2nd and 12. It's a lot better to be in 3rd and 10 than 3rd and 18. And so we see that happen a little bit. What's up, guys? So there is something to be said for that. And Blake Bedingfield wrote today, part of J.C. Latham's had 2 games in the last 3 where things haven't been terrific. The Houston game, it was more noticeable. But what's happening is those ends or outside linebackers ride past Latham. And then as Levis steps up, those guys kind of track back to get him from behind, and Latham fails, and PF undoubtedly fails to be able to stay with that pass rusher. He might quote unquote win initially, pushing him past the quarterback, but then he gives him a second life to come back and track the quarterback. That's something you want to read in the Blake Bedingfield piece this year. Z Dean, would I attribute the Titans' slow start to underrating Callahan being a first-time play caller, or do I think the start was more to player development, learning the system? It's never one thing, always multiple things. All of that stuff. I mean, players were too slow to catch on. Callahan was too slow to call plays, and they just weren't very good. I don't know that they're very good right now. I mean, they're playing better, but is it better enough? We're going to find out. But yeah, they had a lot of new players that needed to gel together. First-time play caller was still figuring out his staff. Quarterback was making some stupid throws. Special teams was killing him, still trying to do so. Turnovers were leaving opponents with short fields, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk about Calvin Ridley. 1,000 yards is important to Calvin Ridley. Nick Holtz knew just how many yards Calvin Ridley needed to get 1,000 when we talked to him this week. Callahan said, I think I've got a much better feel now for Rid and what he does really well and how to use him, what the route tree looks like for him. And I think he's a lot more comfortable with all the things we're asking him to do. Again, I would like him to have a good feel for the route tree when they signed him. Looking at his history in Atlanta, looking at his history in Jacksonville. Here's more Nick Holtz on Calvin Ridley.
Oh, yeah, I think so. He's done a great job kind of finding all the different spots. He's played in the slot. We motion him a bunch now. And, if I'm another team, I'm taking him away. That people are going to try to take him away, and they try to double him. And, Minnesota a couple weeks ago had a plan. So the more you motion him, the more you move him around, it's harder to have those doubles, especially on 1st and 2nd down, and still play all your run fits and all those rules when we kind of can put them in conflict. So he's really kind of taken that role as the number one, that we all thought he was. And it's been really nice to see him kind of just keep growing in the offense, and his route trees kept expanding, and Will's getting more comfortable, and Mason was getting comfortable with him. And I think it's just everybody, as time has gone on, we kind of just getting a more feel for each other.
So that's along the took too long thing. And I asked Callahan about this took too long. What if Ridley got going from the start? What if they were throwing deeper from the start? What if Callahan had a better feel for all this personnel from the start? What if they didn't waste 4 games for NWI trying to get Traylon Burks involved? What if Simmons was himself from the start? He said, Callahan, you certainly can look at it right now where our record's at and where we are in the season with some games that particularly early on in the year that we had opportunities to win. And you get a couple more of those wins and we're in a much different spot than we are currently. And yeah, there's some things I wish had happened at a faster rate, but it's just the way it's gone. We're going to have to continue to get better. We still have a lot of football left to play and a lot of things left to build on and improve on. But yeah, I certainly would have wished we were hotter earlier, and that's just sort of how it goes sometimes. So, I mean, if things go well the rest of the way, ideally you're talking about a team that got better from the beginning to the end. And I think I said this, I think a lot of people said it, that would be a win for the 2024 Titans. That Levis got better start to finish, that a lot of young players got better start to finish, that the cohesion got better start to finish, and that you were looking ahead to 2025 saying they had, achieved some significant and important growth. They're in position to do that now. Again, it starts with winning 2 in a row for the first time in 2 calendar years. A lot of people seem to be very confident that's going to happen. I'm not so sure that we do that. So we'll see. It's not a very exciting answer. Let's go back to Holtz for a second here, because this is Holtz on Levis with the sacks, which is another very key element to this whole deal, right? Holtz on Levis with the sacks.
There's 2 parts. So kind of like part of it is on front recognition a little bit, but you can kind of speak out of both sides of your mouth at this point of, I also haven't coached as many quarterbacks that are as athletic as Will, so he's kind of got that ability, to kind of scramble out that maybe I haven't had, and I'm not sure Brian has had as much either. So there's 2 parts. You don't want him looking at the rush, but there's a front recognition part of, I know these are kind of the rush patterns that come out of this, and where are my protections going? So say I'm sliding to the right, I can normally find a pocket out to the out to my left that way. But you don't want him staring at the rush and doing those kind of things. So you don't want to sit there and say, oh, now you're looking, and we want his eyes down the field. And it's just kind of a feel thing. And more often than not, we just want him to throw the ball or throw it away, especially on first and second down.
This pocket recognition is something I'm going to get into more, write something about it next week. Pocket field, the development of pocket field. There's certainly more potential for Will Levis to gain better pocket field. I don't know that he'll ever be a great pocket field guy, but you talk about a young quarterback who's not accurate. It's very rare for a guy to get significantly more accurate. Josh Allen, everybody points to, well, who's the next guy? It's infrequent that a guy who's inaccurate in college comes out and becomes accurate in the pros. You kind of are what you are by the time you're coming out of college. Pocket recognition can change, and so I've got more from Holtz, from Callahan, from Mason Rudolph, from Will Levis. You can read that at paulkuharsky.com next week, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to delve into. Got to tell you about Edleys. I'm here at Edleys. I ate Edleys yesterday. I will be eating Edleys leftovers this afternoon. Unfortunately, I'm leaving for Washington at like 11 tomorrow morning, and I won't be able to eat Edleys tomorrow during the day. But Edleys, you have 5 points here in East Nashville, 1004 Woodland Street, right at 5 points. Terrific venue. Leon here, take care of you. Leon makes mean margaritas. He will watch you eat your first fried ribs and watch the wonder on your face. And you'll find similar service and all the same quality food at Sylvan Park, in Donaldson, at Franklin and Berry Farms, Franklin at the factory, in Gallatin in 12 South, and at Nolensville. I actually ordered my box of Thanksgiving food from 12 South. Stopped there on my way home from Titans headquarters in Metro Center, picked that up, took that home. My wife and I unpacked it. We put it in the fridge. They gave us directions as to how long to heat this and how long to heat that. Kept adding stuff to the oven. My wife did. Perfect Thanksgiving meal. Perfect. When you're ready to get out of the house this weekend, go have a cocktail or a beer or two, and maybe you're tired of turkey and you're ready for some brisket or something like that. Head to Edleys. Have a big time. They've been a terrific sponsor for me. And I know you guys all love the barbecue and are regular Edleys eaters, most of you. So make a charge and make a visit this weekend. And if you haven't been, well, you're beyond past due to give it a shot. Let's see what some new questions in here are. Leon, got to meet him one day, says Howie. Didn't Mahomes' accuracy get a lot better from that in college? MB asked. I'm not sure what Mahomes was in college. Maybe it has gotten a lot better. But again, yeah. So we're talking Mahomes and Allen. Well, two of the great quarterbacks of their era, and potentially, two probable Hall of Fame guys. I mean, Mahomes is a Hall of Famer. Allen's very likely a Hall of Fame. The bulk of quarterbacks in the NFL do not get more accurate as they go. They can get better with their pocket presence. Tennessee Truth says they are certainly stuck with Levis for the next year with no quality quarterback FA or draftable quarterbacks. With the exception of Ridley, they seem to have blown their free agent picks. Same results next year? Well, I don't agree with you on many matters here. I mean, there are quarterback options if you want to go find them. There are draftable quarterbacks in Sanders and Ward for sure. With the exception of Ridley, they've blown their free agent picks. Are you forgetting Tony Pollard, who's the best player on the team? He's certainly been good. Cushenberry's hurt. Diggs is hurt. I don't think you can offer verdicts on those guys. The free agent class hasn't been at all what we expected, but you can't wash it all away with one brush. And Pollard and Ridley, Pollard's been great, really, throughout the entire season. And Ridley's gotten to be very good. I think you can really dismiss that. Same results next year. No, they're going to add people. They're going to add a right tackle. They're going to add an edge rusher. They're going to add a young receiver. And if they're sticking with Levis, they're going to get a version of Levis that looks at least like the Levis that we're seeing now, if not better, as opposed to the Levis that they got at the beginning of this season. So how does that compute to the same thing next year? I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of things I don't have as much faith in as I had previously, but I don't understand how you equate this team right now, which is on a little bit of an upswing in terms of production and look and competitiveness, to being the same thing as it was earlier this season next year. Sweat and Brownlee have been surprisingly good. Great steal in the 5th for Brownlee. Rand needs like 5 of those next draft to help his track record. He's not going to get 5 of them. You generally, I will say Rand was talking like guys like Harrell and James Williams were going to be, and I understand those are very late picks, we're going to be big first-year contributors. Going to be different. We're going to get stuff out of our late-round picks in their first year. They're not. Robert Draper, good to see you, my friend. If the Titans don't lock down NWI with a multi-year contract, do I see a danger of another team poking? Absolutely. I mean, there are plenty of teams that would like NWI with good reason as a third wide receiver, dependable guy, particularly if you have speed with your first 2 guys, a nice piece of a receiving core, good locker room personality, all of those things. It'd be a shame if the Titans don't re-sign him. The other thing is, for any of these guys who leave, again, we're talking like the Titans have gotten their needs down to a manageable number, right? Outside of depth, they need depth virtually everywhere. But you could say right now, right tackle, edge rusher, wide receiver, safety probably, tight end. Manageable between free agency and the draft, and then you work on depth, and you can take some talented football players who aren't necessarily guys that you need something out of as rookies, or free agents that you're not looking for as starters. You could get some good special teamers and realize that you blew it on special teams talent, but you don't have to. If you lose somebody like NWI, then you create a hole. So if NWI leaves, Boyd should be gone. Then you create another need for a wide receiver. So you've got Ridley and who? Boyd will be gone. NWI will be gone. You got Ridley, a top draft pick. I'd say like first 2 days draft pick. Hopefully they're getting another pick there, and they have 3. But right now they only have 2. And then you got to shop. So you're already kind of replacing the Hopkins role with another good pick. And then if NWI goes, you got to replace NWI. You can't create more needs. So I would think he wants to be here, the team that gave him his chance and let him do everything, be fair, give him a good offer ahead of free agency and secure him. But also, this is a team that when his tender came around, they didn't give him a tender offer. They gave him something under the tender offer, and he declined it. Initially, we remember, for a day, and came back the next day and signed it after he realized that, hey, the market for me is not maybe what I thought, or maybe he just got bad advice from his agent. I have a couple notes here, at least one more note that I wanted to share. Thank you for coming, day after Thanksgiving. I hope you have a lazy day with no work. Nick Folk is 46 of 48 since he joined the Titans. That's 95.8%. He can miss his next 2 field goals to get to 50, and he will still have the best percentage in franchise history in his first 50 field goals. Ryan Suckup made 43 of 50 for 86%. That is really, really impressive work. And it's not that long ago that John Robinson and Mike Vrabel didn't really give a shit about the kicker position. They just scrolled guys through. They let Ryan Suckup, convince them that they were healthy, that he was healthy, brought him off IR, saw a disaster, rolled guys through. Then Vrabel showed up lately on the Barstool podcast and said, all these kickers that passed through here were garbage and they've gone on to do great things, not acknowledging at all there's something in the water in the Titans building where they couldn't get a guy to kick. And I know they don't specifically coach those guys precisely, though they did have a kicking coach for 1 year during that. But Nick Folks has been a real godsend. And but for his steady kicking, Titans special teams would be an absolute mess. Everybody that gets a new contract gets at least slightly overpaid. And he's not having, MB says, give NWI a fair offer, but I wouldn't overpay him. This is his one really good year, and it's his contract year. Your antenna is up. So you think that he's catching a high percentage of touchdowns on his thing because it's contract year? I think we could be a little bit more discerning than that. He's earning opportunities in special situations, and he's playing very clutch, opportunistic football. You can tell when a guy's turning it on for his contract year. Albert Hainsworth turned it on for 2 years for his contract year. His effort was way more than it had been previously. Nick Westbrook-Akine has always put forth effort. He's not playing contract year football. Is Radin's worth a new contract that's close to market value in your mind, or in my mind, 50% of that? Well, he's not re-signing for 50% of market value. I mean, there's a dearth of offensive linemen. Dylan Radins has played a semi-effective starting guard in the league. There'll be a job for him somewhere if it's not here. And the Titans have such a issue at right tackle. I would think he's the starting right guard here next year, unless it takes a significant amount of money if somebody jumps out and really overpays him. But this idea where you just let a guy go and think you could replace him is pretty dangerous for the Tennessee Titans on the offensive line now. And again, like I said with NWI, you let a guy who's performing for you go, and you create another need. And the last thing the Titans need is another hole on their offensive line. So I would work to re-sign Radins. I don't think he's by any means a break-the-bank guy. But, all it takes is one team to have their eye on him and say, hey, Dylan Radins would plug in here nicely and help us complete our offensive line. I think the Titans need to stand toe-to-toe with that team. And, look, you got to do it before. If a guy gets the free agency and gets that offer somewhere else, he's going, generally speaking. Mike Vrabel's Burners got money on a Ridley touchdown. Do I think he'll get it? I don't know. It's predicting these things. Like I'm expert on this team in certain things, but predicting things is like the league is unpredictable. That's why it's so good. I tell you that time and time again. The unpredictability of the NFL is the thing that makes it great. MB says he's not saying that what we see this year from NWI isn't what we'll see consistently every year from now on. He's just not convinced. Well, we're not going to see the kind of touchdown rate that we've seen from NWI in the future. It's not sustainable. But I'm saying if you're worried about contract year performance, NWI is not the kind of year that's giving you contract year performance. I mean, the guy didn't get a target in the first 4 games of the season. How could he be giving you contract year performance when they're not even letting him touch them? I think NWI is pretty safe bet for continuing to work and do what he does when given the opportunity to do what he does. Hey, I hope everybody's had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you have a great 4-day weekend going on. I hope the Raiders can hang with the Chiefs for at least a little while here. I hope you'll subscribe to paulkuharsky.com if you're not a member. Really good stuff going on. I promise you, insightful analysis and information that you can't get anywhere else, including this 25th All Titans team that I posted yesterday. That'll take you back and help you kind of remember things from 25 years of the Tennessee Titans. I'm not seeing that anywhere else. That alone is worth $750 for this month. Mike Herndon, Blake Bedingfield, writing great stuff. Edley's Barbecue hosting me for these podcasts usually on Thursdays. I'm grateful to them. It's a phenomenal meal. Come eat here. Zen Sports. Use TN Paul to sign up. Get yourself a free year at paulkuharsky.com by betting $10 after you sign up and using that code. Sign up for the site. Bet. You want to tip? I think I'd take Seattle giving 1.5 at the Jets. I appreciate all of you so much. I'm thankful for the success of the site, which is all dependent on you. I've got an open spot in the All 22, which rarely happens. Email me, pkuharsky@gmail.com if you're interested in the details about that. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, everybody. I will talk to you from the press box in Landover, Maryland after the Titans-Commanders game. Don't block the box, and be sure to lock your locks. Cheers.